Hi everyone, this is Chris, and welcome back to Consciousness and the Phenomenon. Today we're diving into the latest developments in the UAP world, and honestly, this could end up being one of the biggest moments in disclosure history. Or, like many times before, it could turn into another cycle of hype and disappointment. But either way, something unusual is happening right now. As some of you may already know, on Friday, May 8th, the United States Department of Defense released 18 videos, images, and files connected to UAP investigations and government transparency efforts surrounding the phenomenon. Whether you believe these objects are extraterrestrial, interdimensional, classified black budget technology, or something else entirely, governments around the world are suddenly talking about this issue much more openly than ever before. And then came a statement from Donald Trump on Truth Social. He wrote, quote, "Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of Defense and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomenon, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters." Unquote. That's a pretty extraordinary statement coming from a sitting US president, whether you like him or not. And following that announcement, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth responded with an official statement saying that alongside the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the government would begin reviewing and declassifying unresolved UAP-related records and historical documents. They described it as a massive undertaking involving tens of millions of records spanning decades, many existing only on paper archives. And one part of the statement really stood out to me. They said these are unresolved cases, meaning the government cannot make definitive conclusions about what was observed. That's pretty interesting, because for decades the public was told there was nothing to see here, nothing unusual, nothing credible. Now suddenly the official language is, we don't know what these objects are. I think that's pretty historic. The Pentagon also stated that new materials will be released on a rolling basis every few weeks in tranches, basically meaning batches of files and videos released over time. So I went and watched the first batch myself. Honestly, the footage is interesting and also a little underwhelming. It's still the usual grainy, black and white infrared style footage we've seen before. You can definitely see objects behaving strangely, but for many people, it probably won't feel groundbreaking yet, and probably won't move the needle for non-believers. Still, this feels different. Not because of the videos themselves, but because of the tone coming from governments lately. There's less ridicule, less dismissal, more acknowledgement. And it's not just the United States. Countries like Japan and other European and South American countries appear to be moving toward greater transparency as well, releasing more information than they ever have before. You can check it out for yourself at war.gov/UFO. I will also leave a link in the show notes. Of course, governments still use the phrase national security whenever certain information remains classified. Personally, I think that explanation has probably been used to hide far more than just military secrets. But at the same time, we also have to be careful not to jump to conclusions without evidence. That's where this gets complicated. Because on one side, you now have a growing number of military personnel, intelligence officers, radar operators, pilots, and whistleblowers all coming forward with remarkably similar stories. Two of the biggest names right now are David Grush and Jake Barber. These two whistleblowers are former intelligence and military insiders who claim they've seen evidence of highly classified programs involving recovered craft and technologies not made by human beings. Rush, a former Air Force officer and intelligence official, has publicly stated that the U.S. government and private aerospace contractors have operated secret crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs for decades. He has also claimed that witnesses and insiders have faced intimidation, retaliation, and career destruction for attempting to expose these programs. And then there's Jake Barber, a former military helicopter pilot. He claimed to have been part of a recovery mission for downed craft of non-Earth origin. You can check out his interview with News Nation's Ross Coulthart on YouTube. I will leave a link for that interview in the show notes, and I highly recommend you check it out. Whether every claim is true or not, here's the question I always come back to. Why would so many people risk everything if there was absolutely nothing to this? These people are risking their careers, their pensions, reputations, security clearances, and in a lot of cases, their personal safety, including their lives. And despite promises of whistleblower protection from Congress, many say those protections haven't actually materialized in reality. Some have reportedly lost jobs, lost contracts, been harassed, been discredited publicly. So naturally, other potential whistleblowers are less than motivated to come forward. And honestly, can you blame them? If you watched others lose everything after speaking out, you probably think twice too. Now, does that automatically prove extraterrestrials are visiting Earth? No, it doesn't. But it does suggest there are serious things happening behind closed doors that the public is not fully aware of. And maybe, just maybe, we are entering the early stages of something governments can no longer completely hide. Or perhaps this is controlled disclosure, a slow release, a carefully managed narrative. I don't know, but what I do know is this. The conversation has changed. And people who never really thought about this or even believed it to be real are talking about it in real and honest conversations. By the way, the government website that I mentioned earlier has had more than 3 billion people visit since May 8th. It's become so mainstream and unstigmatized that news stations are even mentioning the different races of NHI, non-human entities. You can check that out on a recent episode of the Jesse Waters Show, and I will, of course, leave a link in the show notes for you to check that out as well. Government officials have officially admitted that there are objects in our skies that they cannot identify, which brings humanity into very strange territory. Territory where what we thought we knew about reality has suddenly blown up in our faces in a mist of lies and deceit. And, on the other hand, what some of us have suspected all along has suddenly started to become very real, and, in a sense, almost regrettable that we were right, because the implications are so staggering that it represents a paradigm shift that will upend society as we know it. But I suppose a shake-up in this society may just be what's needed, whether we want it or not. Alright everyone, let me know what you think in the comments. Are we finally getting real disclosure? Or is this just another carefully managed psychological operation designed to keep the public guessing? I've been saying for a long time now that 2026 will be a big year. So far, nothing too earth-shattering, but we have lots of time for more cool stuff to happen. Thanks for listening to Consciousness and the Phenomenon. I'm Chris, and I'll see you next time.